This is one of my favorite parts, the effort to return ratio. And thank you, Dave Steck, for that term, the ERR. So whose effort to return ratio is better in a private lending situation? The active investor, i.e. the flipper, or the passive investor, the lender? So let's take this example, and it's an old example, so we can get this type of interest rate, but I'm seeing loans that are usually a little bit higher. But let's take this as an example. So we've got the active investor, the flipper. She finds a price finds the property that the purchase price is $70,000. And she knows there's going to be some rehab costs of $10,000 involved. It's going to be about $1,000 worth of holding costs, insurance and property taxes during the period of time in which they're flipping it. And the capital cost, that's supposed to be in the other line. Forget the capital cost that goes under private investor. The sales cost, which is the ratio, the commission to the real estate agent, all that comes off. So in my example, the active investor, after purchasing the property, spending, in my example, 100 hours to fix it up, has a net profit of $18,100. But if you divide that by the 100 hours they spent in it, you've got a profit per hour of only $181 an hour. Now let's go over to the right-hand column and look at the lender. Let's assume this is all the lender's money. So just take that whole capital cost out of the equation. If I've got this passive investor, AKA lender, they loan the $80,000, the purchase price and the rehab, and they get 3 points on that deal. That's a check for, they're loaning the $70,000, the flipper funds the $10,000. So the lender loans $70,000, they get 3 points up front, that's $2,100. They get an interest rate of 12%. Let's assume this is a 6-month loan. That would be $4,200 in interest. When the house sells at $100,000 and the lender gets paid off, they keep the whole $6,300 before taxes. So that's a net profit of $6,300, but they've probably only got about 10 hours or less in the deal. I think it's probably more like 2 hours, but let's be conservative and say it's 10 hours. Their profit is $630 an hour versus the flippers of $181 an hour. Now, I don't know about you, but I would rather make $630 an hour than $181 an hour. And I'll tell you a good story on an effort to return ratio for me. This was a loan that I did. And I got an email from my friend Dave Steck, who emailed a number of us. And he said, hey, I've got a hair on fire deal to buy a portfolio of houses. But the only catch is I've got to come up with $500,000 today. I don't have time to do the paperwork. I can give you absolutely no security. My company will have security, but I can't give you security. I don't even have the time to sign the promissory note. Will you send me money? Well, because of my relationship with Dave, and I've never done this before or since, I was on vacation in Arizona, and I called my bank and had them wire $100,000 to Dave that afternoon. Knowing Dave, I didn't do as much due diligence as I normally do, but I knew his experience. I'd been in a mastermind with him for years at this point, and so I trusted him. My time in that deal was probably about, let's call it 30 minutes. I think it was more like 20 minutes. I invested $100,000. 88 days later, I got $18,000 back. Okay, so that's an 18% return if I only flip that money once a year. But let's say it came back in 88 days. That's less than 3 months. So let's say I flipped that same 100,000 3 more times that year. My return would be 18 times 4. That's huge. What is that, 72 or something? Huge return. So that's my effort to return ratio. I'm getting a massive return for very little time spent on these private loans. It does take some time, but just not as much as the flippers.